I started working at the local gym just 2 weeks ago. So far, being an employee at Salve Gym has been a delight, as I had fun with coworkers, and my boss Jeff treated his employees really well. It was also a delight to interact with some of the regular gym goers who were very amiable too, except this particularly quiet and intimidating guy who never once uttered a word. I normally worked at the front desk, arranging gym membership dues, brainstorming marketing tactics, and doing mainly administrative work for Jeff. So by now, I'm already familiar with the faces that frequent Salve Gym. Most of them would greet me, and some even stop for a chat every now and then. At the very least, they would nod their heads in acknowledgement, a small gesture that I still appreciated nonetheless. After weeks of working, it was only this one particularly intimidating and buff guy whom I had yet to have a single interaction with. Try as I may to brush it off, I took particular notice of him, since he was an everyday gym goer, and it wasn't as easy to blatantly ignore someone when you see them so often. Some days, he would even go to the gym twice. The most interaction we shared was a few eye contact here and there while he's entering the gym. They were tense, but I couldn't help but notice how intense his gaze was. As an openly gay man, I wasn't afraid to think that he was unusually attractive, with his disheveled brown hair and contrasting, piercing bright blue eyes. Not to mention, he had the body to go with it. But it was a huge turnoff to see that of all the gym clients, he was the least friendly. It wasn't until a month later that we shared our first words together. My coworker Randy had taken over the front desk for the night, and I was in charge of cleaning some equipment instead. The mysterious guy was doing some weights at first, and I pretended to mind my own business. But it was so tough, given that it was already getting late at night and there were only a few clients in such a massive gym. I glanced at him every now and then, and surprisingly, he met my eyes once or twice. I tried to brush it off, but seeing how he was undeniably handsome, I couldn't help but blush. All of a sudden, the enigmatic guy transferred to the rowing machine, and I heard a rather loud "ow." I looked at him immediately and saw that he had cut himself with a loose, sharp piece of the machine that another client must have dislocated. I rushed to his aid, and he tried covering the wound at first when I loomed over him. Without uttering another word, I rushed to the front desk to get a first aid kit. When I came back, the guy was desperately pressing against his wound, but the bleeding wasn't stopping, so I took a gauze and attempted to press it against him. When he stopped me very animatedly, "No, don't touch me," he exclaimed. I was taken aback. I was only trying to help, and yet there he was, refusing to accept my assistance. It was my job after all. Did he feel my weird attraction toward him? Did he feel that perhaps a gay man like me was developing feelings for a man like him? That was likely the reason. After all, I haven't even given this man a single excuse to hate me. "Put the first aid kit down, and I'll take care of it. I got it from here," he ordered. "Okay," I said simply, and walked away, dismayed that during our sole interaction, he was rather unwelcoming and as cold as he seemed all those days. I reported the matter to my boss and the owner of the gym, Jeff Salve. He then approached the intimidating and unfriendly guy the next day to profusely apologize and to check up on his wound. I accompanied Jeff to approach him, seeing as I was the staff on duty that day, and was the one who witnessed the accident. "Henry, hey," Jeff greeted. So the mysterious guy's name was Henry. Finally, I could associate a name with that face. Henry nodded cordially, but didn't utter another word. Maybe he was this quiet and he didn't hold a grudge against me after all. But then again, why did he refuse my help when he got injured? "I heard about your accident from George here. You okay, man?" Jeff asked kindly. "I'm good, thanks," Henry said with a tight nod before walking away. I would have thought he was rude, if not for Jeff defending him passionately. "Henry's a good friend of mine, believe it or not," Jeff explained. "It's just his personality." I raised my eyebrow questioningly. "You sure? It didn't look like that. He's been a friend of mine for years now. He just went through some really rough patches in life," Jeff justified. I would have never believed it. In my mind, Henry was simply an arrogant man who thought he was better than everyone, so that he could get away with ignoring mere workers like myself. I even thought that perhaps he was homophobic, since it was clear that he didn't want to be cordial with me, although I've been nothing but approachable towards everyone in the gym. Maybe he didn't want to mix around, or be seen with a gay man, lest he would be perceived gay as well. But I couldn't be more wrong. That night, as I was heading out of the gym, I heard a commotion that intrigued me. I looked up to see a familiar silhouette and a female figure arguing in the parking lot. The male shadow was definitely Henry. I don't even know if you could consider it an argument, since it seemed pretty one-sided. She screamed, and he basically listened. "You're a piece of shit. Useless. All you know is go to the gym and be a bum," the woman shouted. Henry looked quite unfazed, despite her repeated attempts to gaslight him. It wasn't until she started hitting his arm that I let out a loud gasp. She even started attacking his face, burying her nails beneath his skin. He wasn't doing anything. He was simply letting her hit and attack him in the middle of the parking lot. Scared that the woman would do some serious damage to Henry, I decided to step up and let my presence be known. "Hey, what's happening there?" I called loudly. "This isn't over. I'll see you at home." I heard her threaten Henry before she glared at me and walked away to her car, driving off as fast as she could. Henry and I watched her drive off. Unsurprisingly, I noticed that parts of his face were scratched, but he didn't seem to even care. "You want to take care of that inside? I can give you the first aid kit," I offered. He glanced at me quickly, and for once, I didn't see the man with the intimidating gaze. Instead, he looked vulnerable under the pale moonlight. "You're relentless, aren't you?" he remarked, flashing me a small smile. I smiled. His grin was infectious. "I'm just naturally kind," I responded awkwardly. He nodded. "And so I noticed," he replied. "Okay, I'll go in." I was pleasantly shocked that he took up my offer, but I was more than ecstatic to escort him into the gym and pass him the first aid kit. "I got it from here," he said, taking the box from me. I nodded and watched as he cleaned the shallow wounds and applied some ointment. "You must think of me as a fool," he said. "Letting a woman treat me like that?" I shook my head and gazed at him. He still looked very vulnerable, and I never knew this was possible, given how tough of an exterior he had. "No, quite the contrary," I replied. "I salute you for being the bigger person, actually." "I don't know how I ended up like this, honestly," he confessed. "I used to really love her, but now, look at us." "I'm sorry to hear that," I consoled him. "For the record, I really don't think you're weak. In fact, sometimes you're stronger when you stay." He flashed me a small smile again, a sight I could seriously feast on forever. "Thank you, George," he said sincerely. I was surprised that he even knew my name. "You know my name?" "Of course. I've been observing you for a while now. You seem like such a kind soul. I didn't want any of my dark aura around you, and I don't think you deserve such negativity in your life. You always seem so happy," he observed. I was puzzled. So all this time, he really had nothing against me? "Meanwhile, I thought you hated me," I replied. He laughed. "I guess I just have to make it up to you, huh?" Henry's behavior over the next few days surprised me beyond words. True to his word, he did make it up to me. Not only was he smiling the moment he walked into the gym, but he actually stayed around to chat, and I got to know him much better. I learned that he's been in a relationship with this girl named Tina for almost 4 years now, which is why he found it so hard to leave her. He also worked at a nearby restaurant as a chef, and even offered me some of the dishes he made. "For you," Henry said one day as he walked in with some ground beef casserole of some sort. "What? You're kidding, right? Casserole? My favorite," I exclaimed, and dug into the dish as soon as I could. "This is so delicious. You mentioned it the other day, and I thought I could make some for you. You've been working long shifts lately too," he remarked. I started feeling butterflies in my stomach, amazed that he remembered such a small detail during our conversation. "Thank you, Henry," I said. "Tina's lucky to have you, really." He smiled, but I could detect a hint of sadness in his eyes. "You okay? Come sit down and share this with me," I offered. He complied, sitting beside me. I was on front desk duty and we shared our lunch together. We talked briefly, but mostly, we just relished in each other's company. One thing I loved about my unexpected dynamic with Henry was that there wasn't much to be said. We enjoyed each other's company, even in silence. "Thanks for always being there for me, George. You've been there for me more in the past weeks than Tina has been in years," Henry confessed. I looked at him then, and our faces were so close that I could see the fullness of his eyelashes, and just how blue his eyes were. His eyes momentarily drifted to my lips, but he snapped out of it rather quickly and shook his head. "I'm not good for you," he uttered. Before he could complete his sentence, Jeff interrupted our moment. "Hey, Henry. Sup, G? How's it going here?" the old man greeted. I rolled my eyes. Jeff was the most amazing boss, but we were having a moment. Henry stood up to greet him and excused himself from me and Jeff, saying he had to start his workout routine already. Jeff looked at me curiously as I watched Henry walk away. "Shake it off, G. It's no good," Jeff advised. "What?" I said, acting innocent. "You're falling for him. That won't do you good, son." "Tina's a force to be reckoned with," Jeff warned. "But I have to admit, I'm surprised that he's responding so well to you. What do you mean? I questioned. Well, I've known Henry for a while. He never smiles. Never. And yet, the moment you two became friends, he's becoming this beacon of happiness. It's kind of weird if you ask me, Jeff commented. But I'm glad to see him better, all thanks to you. I raised my eyebrows quizzically. You think I make him happy? Happier, better, less miserable, you name it. After his afternoon workout, Henry went to work, but he came back just before the gym closed and got some more exercise done. Jeff's words echoed through my mind the whole day, and as I listened to Henry talk animatedly to me about his day, I led him and gave him my fullest attention. Happier, better, less miserable. Jeff said it himself. I may not know it, but I think I've become Henry's comfort person, so we ended up losing track of time. Our boisterous laughter, now echoing through the empty gym, came to an abrupt halt when a curvy brunette with some menacing tattoos walked through the door. "What the hell are you doing?" she shouted, spotting me and Henry sitting side by side and laughing. "You stupid piece of crap! Are you cheating on me now with some low-life gym worker? No wonder you spend all your time here." "Hey," Henry rose up and stopped Tina from getting near me. "Leave him alone." Tina took a step back and smirked. "I'm right, am I not? You don't retaliate when I attack you, but as soon as I bring your little boyfriend into this, you're coming to his defense?" I was tongue-tied, now realizing why even someone like Henry would feel so belittled by someone like Tina. She just gave off such mean girl vibes, and a much more superior aura. "Tina, let's go home," said Henry, trying to deter her from approaching me. Tina laughed mockingly. "Home? Henry, it's 3 a.m. You've been fooling around for far too long with this disgusting gay worker that you lost track of time. Is that what you do in your spare time, huh? Is that why your pay at the restaurant is still so low and you hardly bring anything to the table because you spend all your time here?" "Let's go, Tina," said Henry firmly as he attempted to drag her out. "I'm going, but watch out, you gay piece of crap. You shouldn't be allowed to work here. I bet you spend all shift long just lusting after these men," Tina muttered before walking out. The next day, Henry profusely apologized for Tina's behavior. He even brought me another dish he made and a cake to go along with it. I appreciate the gesture, but it was really not needed. I already took comfort in knowing that he was okay, and that Tina didn't hurt him last night. "I'm sorry you had to deal with her. You don't deserve that," said Henry apologetically. "I broke up with her. I finally ended it. You gave me the courage to." "I'm happy for you, Henry," I remarked. "You deserve someone who will care for you. Someone who won't hurt you. Someone like you," he said almost wistfully. Again, he was sitting beside me, and he was so close that I could feel the warmth of his breath against my face. "If I kissed you now, will you let me?" he asked cautiously. "I've spent far too long of my life waiting. I've waited to marry Tina, but she turned out that way. I've waited to leave her, but I'm still stuck in her grasp. I've waited to approach you, and now that I finally got to know you, I just can't wait to love you. So let me." I felt my heart thumping loudly against my chest, and without hesitation, I kissed him. Gone were the doubts about his personality, the fear of judgment, and everything in between. But just like last night, our special moment was interrupted by none other than Henry's now ex-girlfriend, Tina. "Look at that. 2 gay lovers roaming around this gym. Oh, the owner would be furious. This isn't good for business, is it?" Tina teased. "Where's the owner? Let me speak to the owner," she demanded repeatedly, despite our best effort to stop her. Even some of my fellow staff members helped, but she was persistent. Jeff must have heard the commotion from his office, all the way back, because he came rushing to the front desk. "What on earth is happening?" he asked. "Sir, are you the owner of this gym?" "Well, I just have some concerns regarding some inappropriate staff-customer relationship I discovered between this whore of an employee of yours and my ex-boyfriend. You see, this man, Henry, was my boyfriend up until this slutty gay employee of yours decided to seduce him. You must do something about this. I'm sure your gym doesn't condone this type of behavior." "Ma'am, with all due respect, the only behavior we don't condone in the gym is discrimination. I won't allow you to treat my employee with disrespect. You have no business talking to George like that. You should also treat Henry with respect. He's a very valued customer here," Jeff retorted. Tina rolled her eyes and stomped like a child. "Unbelievable. No wonder such an establishment breeds inappropriate gay staff like this George here. The owner tolerates it. This isn't the end. You'll all pay for this. Especially you, Henry, and your new pet." "I'm not done with the 2 of you yet," she shouted. The next few days, Henry and I entered a state of bliss. For once, I saw him for the carefree man he really was, without worrying about Tina. We quickly developed a routine. Luckily, he worked nearby, so whenever he was on break or had some time between shifts, he would visit me at the gym, and he always made sure I was well fed. "I really am spoiled," I said, as I took a bite of the pork belly he made for me. He kissed my nose and ruffled my hair. "Nothing but the best for my baby," he remarked. I rolled my eyes, but I knew that I was blushing furiously because of his comment. He loved making me blush, which he could usually elicit by calling me a pet name or touching me. "You're distracting me from work, sir." "I better get back," I excused myself. I really didn't think it was going to be an eventful afternoon. I was tasked to clean some equipment gears that afternoon, so I was just doing my job, when suddenly, a blonde man brushed past me and then suddenly screamed vulgarity. "Why did you touch me?" he exclaimed, aghast. "Get away from me, you pervert." I was speechless, seeing as I was stationary and he was the one who seemed to have deliberately brushed against my body. "Sir, I didn't do anything," I explained. "I was just cleaning when you brushed past." The guy let out a sarcastic laugh. "And now it's my fault? Aren't you the gay worker around here? Why am I not surprised that you tried to grab me?" he accused. "Sir, I did no such thing. I'm just doing my job here. Cleaning," I said desperately. "Oh, sure you are. I bet you feast on men all day long here, huh? You disgusting piece of crap. I'm calling the police on you," he shouted. Just then, a middle-aged red-haired man came to my defense. Hey, no one's calling the police here. I witnessed it with my very own eyes. You, sir, were the one who made contact with George. He was just cleaning the bench when you purposely brushed past." Another gym-goer, a woman in her 20s, came to my aid. "And besides, George would never do such a thing. He's one of the most trustworthy ones here." Here. A lot of other customers also agreed and came to my defense, unbelieving that I could do such a thing. "Trustworthy? My arse. Don't even try to pin me on this. I'm filing charges," the guy threatened. "No, you're not," said Jeff's voice from the back. "I have CCTVs all over this place, and they won't lie. Now you better apologize to George for accusing him and causing a scene to disrupt peace here. Apologize or I'll call the police." Falsely accusing someone of a crime deliberately is also a criminal offense, you know. The man, without warning, tried to run out, but the other employees quickly gave him a chase, and Henry, who was only entering the gym then, stopped him too. "Aren't you Nathan?" Henry asked, realizing that the blonde man looked familiar. After hearing about what had happened, he swiftly warned Jeff. "No, Jeff, you better call the police. This is clearly sabotage, and I'm not even surprised at this point," said Henry. "What's going on?" I asked, confused and in shock of the quick happenings. "That man, Nathan, he's with Tina. She doesn't know that I know, but she's been cheating on me with him, and now it seems like she tasked him to cause a scene here," Henry explained. Shortly after, the police arrived to escort Nathan away. Luckily, since Jeff had solid proof of my innocence, and the sharp accusations that followed after, all thanks to the CCTV, the head of the police said it would be an easy case. Nathan was whisked away to the nearest station, where he will be behind bars. I should have known that Tina would take revenge, but I was in such a bliss because of my budding romance with Henry that she slipped off my mind. With Nathan out of the picture and Henry and I falling back to our routine, I got to know him more. The good, the bad, the pretty, the ugly. I embraced it all. With each passing minute, I found myself falling for Henry, over and over again. "So that's why you didn't want me to touch you that day when you cut yourself," I said reflectively. "You were scared of others touching you because of Tina's tendency to hurt you." He nodded. "But I think it's going away now." I raised my eyebrow. "Why's that?" He took my hand and placed it against his chest. "See? With you, I have no fears." I smiled and rested my head against his shoulder. That night, Henry was meant to get the last of his stuff from his old place with Tina. Unfortunately, shortly after we got there to pick up his last box, Tina arrived and started rampaging the place. "You two have ruined everything. Not only have you, Henry, embarrassed me, but you two threw the love of my life in jail. You disgust me beyond words. Gay pieces of shit," she screamed. She started hurling things towards us, and even tried to attack Henry with a pocket knife. "You've embarrassed me beyond words. Imagine, 4 years of my life with you, and you end up being gay? I'll kill you," she shouted. Henry managed to dodge the knife, and instead, Tina started throwing punches at him, and even attempting to scratch his face, just like how she used to when she abused him before. Thankfully, Henry managed to break free, and Tina fell to the floor. She already seemed tipsy and sluggish when she walked into the room. Fortunately, Henry managed to drag me into a nearby room. He grabbed his phone from the cabinet before locking the door, leaving the seemingly drunk and disoriented Tina banging the door. "I'm calling the police," he whispered. "I got her on camera." So that was why his phone was on the cabinet, and he grabbed it before we made our escape to the nearest room. He was filming Tina for evidence. "Oh my God, thank goodness you're okay," I exclaimed. "It'll all be over now, love." "She's going to prison," he said in utter disbelief. "I waited for so long to get concrete evidence against her. I mean, who would believe that a woman could abuse a tough, big guy like me? But now I've got proof." "We'll be okay now," I reassured him. "You're okay, Henry." We waited for the police to arrive. Meanwhile, Tina was still attempting to break into the door, but to no avail. Shortly after, we heard sirens, and when we unlocked the door, Tina was already in cuffs. "Your request to be reunited with Nathan is fulfilled," said Henry. "You'll join him in jail." 2 months after Tina's failed attempt to seriously injure Henry, she was sentenced to 2 years in prison for domestic abuse. Apparently, Henry also had other video proof of the abuse, which strengthened the case. Although Tina's boyfriend Nathan was only in prison for a month for the havoc he caused at Salve Gym, he was subsequently thrown back in for being involved in drugs. Justice was served. Karma truly was a bitch, and it bit Tina's ass. Not only was she rotting in prison, but even her own family disowned her. Henry tried to keep it classy and keep the ordeal to ourselves, but somehow the prospect of a male who is domestically abused became a field day for the media. So soon, the whole town and the whole state knew of the case. Tina was in ruins, with her family and friends all condemning what she did to Henry. In the blink of an eye, she lost her career, family, friends, and her future. In contrast, Henry received a promotion at work. He was now one of the senior chefs, since the owner of the restaurant not only enjoyed his cooking and appreciated his hard work, but also saluted him for his courage and endurance. We were in a happy relationship, and we have since moving in together. Henry has also started therapy to address all the wounds of his past. I was beyond happy for him. Gone was the looming, intimidating buff guy. Now he was a jolly, healing, and kind individual. Salve Gym is ever growing. Jeff also gained quite the publicity when the news about Tina blew up. And since a lot of the pivotal happenings in the case took place in his gym, more people were made aware of it, and the clientele increased. I was thankfully promoted to the manager, as Jeff is now focusing on his second Salve Gym branch. Everything finally fell into place. The end. Do you think it's okay for employees of a business to develop relationships with their clients or customers? Leave a comment and let us know what your thoughts are. Thanks for watching. Consider subscribing to become a part of our Rainbow Force. And stay wholesome. Thanks for watching. Consider subscribing to become a part of our Rainbow Force. And stay wholesome.